How's everybody doing tonight? Let's get ready to rumble. Coach Khayr, welcome to Coach K Radio tonight and the story of the magic mushroom. Woo! Let's clear the air a little bit out here. Let's clear the air a little bit. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Tonight is going to be a very, very special night. I feel it all in my toenails this evening. Happy fiscal new year to everybody. Glad everybody is safe out here seeing another transition in their lives, welcoming another lap around the sun. As far as my January 1st and January 2nd babies, big shouts out to all my Capricorns. As you know, I'm your host, Coach Khayr, Team Taurus, and tonight I'm in Atlanta, Georgia. This one is going to be a really, really interesting night for me and a very interesting episode, I think, for my entire listening audience. I've been investigating, I don't know how to even, this story might even start way back in like 2001, or maybe even back in the 90s, and I think the whole thing is going to run into what I probably would call sequence of events. I recently, just this 2018, my interest has been piqued in magic mushrooms. However, before that, expanding my consciousness has probably been my rule of thumb, my game plan, and my strategy since the mid-90s. And there's just been so much, I guess experiments for me to travel through and go through that it would only lead me to right here. So I'm not going to try to tell this whole story by myself. I normally got me somebody riding shotgun with me. I have an amazing guest tonight that's going to come on, Baba Kilindi. I'm going to bring him in with a crazy introduction tonight as what he is deserving. But I got to bring in one of my homies first who has been my compadre on a spiritual journey for quite a few years. Crazy way we even met and came in contact with one another, and the vibes that we have and the building sessions and ciphers is totally amazing. I'm going to go ahead and open up the mic real quick for my man, Fire Water.
Yeah, peace. Love, peace, and happiness, wholeness, and fullness. Pleasure. It's a pleasure and an honor.
Thank you, my brother. For coming through tonight and helping me make sure I got this thing harmonized right here. We got some heavy hitters coming through tonight, and I didn't know if I can handle it by myself. I was gonna give it my best shot, but after more sequence of events and speaking with you last week, I was like, bro, you're gonna have to come in and help me out on this one tonight.
No doubt. Yeah, it should be exciting. You know, the heavyweight, the OG, triple OG is on the mic, so we might not have to do too much talking. He probably got the whole thing by himself.
Hey, man, that's wonderful, and I'm glad because I'm optimistic, just like you optimistic. I ain't going to hold up the floor. I'm getting ready to throw the spotlights on. I need everybody to get up out their seats, get on their feet for a master teacher, master student of the multiverse, world traveler. I call him a spiritual engineer. I call him a trailblazer. And as you said, Triple OG, one of the foremost minds in, I would say, the entire psychedelic field and realm of expanding consciousness and what I like to call DNA explosions. I want everybody to get on their feet and put their hands together for Baba Kilindi Iyi of the Tamarind Institute.
Peace, everyone.
Baba Kilindi, how you feeling this evening?
I'm doing pretty good. Can you hear me okay?
Man, you're coming through loud and clear. You're coming through loud and clear like about 45 grams. Coming through loud and clear.
Good. Got a little throat thing happening, so if I cough, please excuse me, audience. I'll try to duck away for a second, but I got a little cough, so trying to get that out of the way. So hopefully everything will run smoothly.
I'm feeling super confident about it. I want to start in, even though we're going to talk about tonight the story of the magic mushrooms. And everybody who's listening, this is part one, because my audience, I'm not sure how much of a background in fundamental background my audience has in magic mushrooms, because I know this is the first time in 9 years of me hosting shows. I've talked on this show. We talk tantra, spirituality, sexuality, relationships, God consciousness, food science, and now here you are. Start kicking off the new year, and as I was saying in the introduction, it's kind of like a sequence of events, because I think if somebody knows you, they know the representative of the mushrooms, but they maybe don't know that they know what they know. And as I told you, I think last year, I came in contact with you through my martial arts study at Shindao Energy Arts with Grandmaster Sunyata Saraswati in North Carolina, and he introduced us to the African martial arts. And
yes.
when I saw the video, I was just like, man, like those exercises themselves put me, just in that whole circle of power. It just like redefined my life, that series of exercises and that concept of being social and the incorporation of Tai Chi and meditation and Li Kung Jing and different types of energy work. And little did I know, at the base of it was the mushrooms. I had no idea. Whether it was naivety or whatever. And when I finally got a chance to talk to you last year, I was just, wanted to just say how much I have been in appreciation of you for being a part of changing my life. And, at that time, I still was unaware of your relationship with the magic mushrooms and the psychedelic community. And I thought, hey, well, that's it. The brother helped me. He introduced me. His work, his body of work through the martial arts has reached me and countless others who I have shared it with, and my other fellow students have shared it with. And I was just like, man, this is just lovely. And then I come back around, and your name started coming up in circles about the magic mushroom. I said, wait a minute. And so, I had to start doing more research and start digging. And you said all of the martial arts came from the psilocybin. But before we get to the martial art area, I just would like for you to, kind of like introduce yourself just a little bit. You ain't got to go too far, because I got a nice series of alley-oop, slow-pitch softball questions for you this evening that I think is going to help my audience and your audience go on a real fantastic voyage tonight. So thank you for coming on the show tonight, and please introduce yourself to my family, Mikasa Sukasa.
Well, my name is Kilindi Iyi. My title is Ahati. I am a old martial artist, meaning that the form that I practice and myself physically is being old. I teach ancient, old, and contemporary African fighting sciences, and that's my vocation. That's what I do. Inside of that, there is a entheogenic or psychedelic or hallucinogenic component of which all ancient and traditional martial arts utilized. Most of the martial arts that we see today are not ancient martial arts. They are modern martial arts, and they don't have that sensibility of the utilization of the power plants in warriorship. If some people have read or been familiar with the Yaqui way of knowledge or the works of Carlos Castaneda in dealing with Don Juan, a separate reality and things like that, it's in its higher levels, much of things like that. In other words, what you would call sorcery, alchemy, and the like. So when I talk martial arts and when we talk about the higher levels of martial arts, we're talking about entheogenic training or training on a different level of consciousness, at a heightened level of consciousness, utilizing the ancient power technologies that we gleaned from prior times. In other words, there have been 7 major cataclysms that have destroyed the earth and brought human beings to a very low level as far as numbers are concerned, and several that basically took humans out altogether. And we have only a few relics left from the times when before the last flood, which would be called the Younger Dryas. So we have Göbekli Tepe, which is in Turkey, and we have the Great Pyramids on the Giza Plateau, along with the Sphinx and pyramid complex there. We have certain cultures that have retained pre-flood knowledge and information and relics, which are things like in the Congo and in Australia. Now, as far as these being repositories of knowledge and information, these are restarted cultures. In other words, they're not the seminal original cultures that were there or civilizations that were there. These are the restarted cultures that happened after the last flood, which decimated not only the earth but also human beings on earth at about the time that Atlantis sunk. And if anybody wants to get into whether there was Atlantis or wasn't Atlantis and things like that, we can get into it later on. But that's basically where my background comes from. I've been utilizing the entheogenic plants for getting close to 50 years now. So, I have experience in these things. Haven't went crazy, no more crazier than I was before I took my first trip. By the utilization of these compounds for, 47, 48, 49 years, whatever it's been by now. So, I'm here ready to answer the questions and go into what people would like to hear. Are we going to have a question and answer period later on, or are we just going to keep rolling?
No, we're going to have, okay, so my audience is some people have told me that they're like one of the most intelligent audiences. So the call lines are open right now. So at any moment, if anybody has a question and they're listening in, all they have to do is press 1. But probably I like to reserve that.
Yeah.
I'm going to warm it up for maybe like 45 minutes. But after that,
that's good.
I'm known to have a nice after party. That's what I call it. We can. You never know who may show up in here this evening. So the call-in number, if you're listening online, is 917-889-3803. And we also have a chat room that's open as well if you're listening to us online. If you have some questions that you'd like for me to pass on to Baba during the conversation, you can just drop it in the chat room. Please don't send me any Facebook messages. I'm not over there looking at that right now. I'm trying to concentrate. But, yes, that's kind of how we roll. And I want to start off with the first question is, take me all the way back 40-some years. You relaxing and maxing, and all of a sudden somebody said, let's take a trip or try this mushroom. I want to hear about that story first. How did they call you? Because I've had teachers say you don't pick the science picks you. So can you tell me about your first encounter and how you got started with this relationship?
Well, on the next street from my girlfriend at the time, her best friend's brother, who was a couple of years older than me, but several years older than them, had went to Oaxaca in Mexico to experienced what they called at the time the food of the gods, where a man by the name of Gordon Wasson in 1956 went to Oaxaca and experienced the magic mushrooms that he got from a curandero by the name of Maria Sabina, who was a woman who had what was called the latest, which were magic mushroom ceremonies at her home in Oaxaca in Mexico. So he went there in 1970, him and another friend. They came back, he came back, and he brought some of the magic mushrooms, the food of the gods, with him. And we were there at the house talking and, going over things, that really weren't prominent in the black community at the time, such as vegetarianism and things like dealing with different healing modalities, martial arts, things like that. And he said, let's try it. Let's go to the backyard and try this. So we went into the backyard. We tried it. It wasn't a real big dose, but it showed me a separate reality. In other words, the tree that was in the backyard was a rather large tree. And you know how, I can't think of what they call it exactly, but, you can look at the clouds and maybe the cloud looks like a horse, or you can look at the cloud and maybe the cloud looks like a duck, or you could look at a tree and maybe the tree, if you look at it kind of sideways, it looks like a face, or you can pick out things from things that aren't necessarily those things as far as different things that our brain puts together as far as patterns are concerned. So while looking at this tree, the bark started to become animate, moving, and a face came on the tree, kind of like the trees in the old 1939 Wizard of Oz. The tree had a face on it, and the face started to move, and eventually it started to talk. And so I was engrossed in this tree talking to me, and I'm like, how in the heck is a tree talking? So there must be more to this reality thing than is projected to us in the regular three-dimensional, five-sense reality of which we're stuck in most of the time. So that kind of set me on the journey with magic mushrooms. I mean, I had some acid prior to that, but this was a little different because the acid trip was basically patterns and movement and geometric and vivid colors. This was a little more content-driven in the natural realm and the natural world and things like that. And over those years that, I've been traveling, the rabbit hole just gets deeper and deeper. There's no end to it. It moves into hyperdimensionality, into the structures of the universe. It goes into things like nanotech and femtotech, zeppotech. It goes into below the Planck length, into the infraparticles, into quantum mechanics, into artificial intelligence, into simulation theory of the universe, into the multiple universal theories and things like that turn out not to just be theories, but to be actualities. But you have to subjectively take the bioassay to be able to do that. So that kind of started me off on the journey of the magic mushroom.
Okay. That's super interesting. Quite like my experience. I'm going to ask you this question. I don't know if anybody asked you. My first experience on mushroom, the first word out of my mouth, because I was like enjoying myself, was wow. Did you have a wow moment? I said, wow. And then I started laughing. I was like, wow. I was like, this. You know how it was like when the Black Panther was flying into Wakanda and it looked like regular jungle, and then all of a sudden it opened up and you saw a whole nother city? I was like, wow. And I probably just kept saying, wow. Whoever was around me probably was like, oh, shucks, there he goes. And that's all I could say for like 10 minutes was like, wow, like this space, and it was real. It was like, I know that was one of the themes of my first night. Well, this is my reality. You know, I wasn't trying to figure it out. I just like laid into it. So, did you like? Is that kind of normal, or you had one of those, or that's rare, or you had one of those experiences too, where you was like, this tree, wow.
Well, I don't know if I said wow, but my brain was definitely saying wow, because this was something different. This was what they told us was impossible. This is what they told us when you were a child and you said you had a imaginary friend or something like that. They said, fool, it ain't no such thing as that. It ain't no such thing as this. It ain't no such thing as that. It ain't no real magic. That's just a movie. Those type of things people would say. But to come to your adulthood and find out that these things are real, these things are something that you can experience, and something that you can gather knowledge, wisdom, and information from. So, I've had many wow moments.
Okay, I'm gonna lead up to that too. Now, a lot of people, when they hear about mushrooms and psychedelics, they often say, "Well, what's the difference between a psychedelic mushroom that you can have experiences with and a mushroom that you would order on your pizza from your favorite restaurant? What's the difference between the poisonous mushrooms?" Can you give me some information on that, please? And maybe this may be a good time to start going back into the history of mushrooms or the family of mushrooms and like help me out right there, please.
Well, the hallucinogenic mushrooms have different chemical constituents inside of it, which affect the mind and the brain. And those mushrooms that you eat, your portobellos and your button mushrooms and shiitake and things like that, have other chemical constituents in it that don't affect the brain in that way. These mushrooms are sentient, they are conscious, and they're not from this earth. They are not only extra-dimensional, they're hyperdimensional, ultra-dimensional, and they not only move transdimensionally, they also move through interstellar space into other realms. And it's no different than in the plant kingdom, because the mushrooms are part of the fungal kingdom, and it's no different between that and a poisonous plant. You have plants that are poisonous. In the summertime we have Queen Anne's lace, and then it's a regular weed, pest weed that people call pest weed. It also can be utilized for certain medicines and things like that. But then you have water hemlocks that look just like Queen Anne's lace. So you have poisonous plants, and you have plants that are good for health and are good for your body. And it's the same thing with fungi. You have plants, you have fungi or mushrooms that are good tasting for eating, like you get it on your pizza. Then you have those that you put in your salad, and those that you saute with some onions and some green beans and others, broccoli and things like that, and stir-fried. Then you have a mushroom that is for your mind and spiritual development and transdimensional travel. So you just have different family groups inside of the fungal kingdom. Some are good for you, some are poisonous, but you don't have to worry about the thing about being poisonous mushrooms. You go out and if you're picking mushrooms, number one, the mushrooms that I'm talking about are coprophilic. They grow on cow dung in their natural state. So you don't have a lot of mushrooms that are poisonous just like cow dung. They are basically grass mushrooms and wood mushrooms and things like that. And these mushrooms are very distinct in their morphology, so you know what they look like. And it's just about knowledge and identification and things like that. And most people don't go out picking these mushrooms. Even in the pastures, they grow them at home. There's a worldwide network of people that grow hallucinogenic mushrooms in the comfort of their own home, in their kitchen, in their bedrooms, in their closets, in their basements, in their attics. And they grow their own hallucinogenic trips through the knowledge of the Internet. And when I originally started out, we didn't have the Internet, but you did have the library and the Dewey Decimal System, where you would go to the stacks and go through the cards and go down in the dusty cellars and find books on mushroom cultivation.
Wow. So are mushrooms that pop up in my backyard, are they safe to consume, or what are some of the basic physical characteristics that I'm looking for that's going to let me know this is a magic mushroom or this is just a regular mushroom? Because I have mushrooms that pop up in my backyard in the springtime for like 3 weeks, and then I don't see them anymore. Are those magic mushrooms? And how?
I wouldn't know what would be in your backyard. There are approximately maybe 10 million different mushrooms. So you never eat an unidentified mushroom. Each state has a mushroom foraging group or mycological society where you go and learn which mushrooms are which. The indoor cultivated mushrooms that you get is a very safe, way of doing it, so that you don't have to worry about looking at something and finding out the spore color, spore morphology, physical characteristics of the mushrooms and things like that. So, no, don't eat the mushrooms in your backyard. That goes for everybody. All mushrooms should be cooked. And also, as far as mushroom identification is concerned, if you want to be a mushroom forager, you join your Georgia Mycological Society or, California Mycological Society, and those people will teach you how to go out foraging in the woods or wherever to find different mushroom species and things like that that would be good for eating or be good for medicine or would be good for your hallucinogenic sojourns into the multiverse.
Okay. Now, when we get near the end, I'm going to ask you the same question again, but I know that you have an online grow class that you offer. Can you give people that information if they're interested in that? I think this may be just a good time. We're just going to drop that real quick and then come back into the questions.
Well, it's just a workshop, and it gives information on how to grow mushrooms of many different types, because it's not necessarily for hallucinogenic mushrooms. It can be used for that if you choose to go into that realm of cultivation. First of all, we would like everybody to know that the hallucinogenic mushrooms, the psilocybin mushrooms, are considered Schedule 1 drug and are illegal in most countries in the world, except for a few. Some places they're not criminalized. In other words, you can utilize them without anybody messing with you, but that's not the United States. England, France, places in Africa and things like that, because it changes behavior, it drops barriers, it gives us knowledge and information, makes you think outside of the box. So that's scary to different governments. We do have a online grow workshop that we have, and it's for informational purposes only. If you choose to do anything else with it, that's your business. But you can get me at my email, which is kilindi@hotmail.com. That's Kilindi, KILINDI @hotmail.com. Or you can get me on Facebook Messenger, or you can get me on Instagram. I think that's pretty much it. You can Google my name and get me also.
Okay. Now you done hit on some points, and I got to go there. When I have experimented with several illegal drugs since I've been on planet Earth, and listening to the stories about mushrooms and acid. I had never tried acid or LSD, and I had never tried mushrooms. And I guess now my hindsight is listening to uninformed folks. I had some very severe prejudices, just like maybe when your parents are like, hey, you shouldn't have sex before this age because this will happen to you, which were all a lie. You know what I'm saying? They were just scaring me, trying to scare me into being responsible. Or, I tried, when I was young, I had tried cocaine, but cocaine started off for medicinal purposes, and then when it started being abused. But when I had my experience with mushrooms and I had my wow effect, one of the biggest wows was when I touched back down on Earth, how elated and how good I felt. Like there was no weed after effects or cocaine after effects or alcohol after effects. For something that made me feel this good, and I do understand a government is afraid of free thinkers. And when you have a large population of free thinkers, it's going to be some problems with the establishment trying to keep them under control. But, man, why are they doing that? Why, what kind of problems is this spore causing and fear? All these big powerful governments has got nuclear weapons and lasers and all this other kind of traveling into space. They fear this spore? Can you talk about that for a second?
Well, as you can see from the disruption that basically came from the knowledge of the mushroom that produced the turbulent 1960s, even though LSD was the flagship entheogen of the 60s, mushrooms was the initiator. By putting out an article in 1957 in Life magazine, Gordon Wasson talked about the magic mushroom experience that he had in Oaxaca. That sent a drove of young white professionals, psychiatrists, psychologists, others into Oaxaca to experience this. One of them's name was Timothy Leary, later Richard Albert, who became Ram Dass, and others. Then people got into basically LSD because Gordon Wasson created a relationship with Albert Hoffman, who was the synthesizer of LSD, because mushrooms, you needed, the right grow parameters and had to be the right temperature, and you needed some cows, and nobody knew how to grow it. It came from nature. But LSD, to, not very smart grad students over a long weekend could produce 1 million hits of LSD. So it became something that was disruptive to society. You had then the 1960s, which, 67 was the summer of love, where you turned Wally and Beaver Cleaver into somebody who no longer had the bush cut, penny loafer shoes and things like that. They had blue jeans with holism, didn't even wear shoes, grew their hair long, said love, peace in the middle of the Vietnam War. Instead of picking up the gun, they were taking flowers and putting it in the barrels of the gun. In the Ashbury region, many things that were taboo up until that time, people started to let go of those particular prejudices. And you had then Richard Nixon and a pretty bad B actor who wanted to be governor of California, and, he said that if you make me governor, I will get rid of the hippies in Northern California. And so Richard Nixon started the war on drugs. And that's what really started a terrible mess because, number one, psilocybin, the mushroom, is not a drug. It's a natural fungi of the earth, of which there are many thousands and hundreds of thousands of different types of, many thousands of different types of mushrooms that grow naturally in the natural world, in the natural environment. So Richard Nixon's war on drugs is what started the assault against the natural entheogens and those things that were societally disruptive in the minds of the military industrial complex. But most people don't know that prior to the Summer of Love back in 1963, LSD saved the world and the country at least one time. The president of the United States at that time, whose name was John Fitzgerald Kennedy, who beat Richard Nixon in 1960, at the time of the Bay of Pigs, his primary mistress, Mary Pinchot Meyer, introduced President John F. Kennedy at that very crucial time prior to that Bay of Pigs incident, and also the time of what was called the Cuban Missile Crisis, introduced John F. Kennedy to LSD. So John F. Kennedy and his principal mistress, Mary Pinchot Meyer, were snorting cocaine, smoking bud, and dropping acid in the Oval Office of the White House in 1963. Whoa. And his change in consciousness, or his augmentation of consciousness in dealing with nuclear proliferation and nuclear utilization, was solidified by his use of LSD and the sensibilities that LSD gave to him not to escalate the war machine of the United States against Russia. So, of course, we know that John F. Kennedy was assassinated in Dallas, Dealey Plaza, and that was one of the reasons why, because he was dropping acid and not pushing forward into the next level of the military-industrial complex, which was the Vietnam War. So he was shot in Dallas and killed. And a little while later, his principal mistress, Mary Pinchot Meyer, who many said was the only woman sexy enough to take John F. Kennedy from Marilyn Monroe, if Bobby didn't do that. But she was in Georgetown and was assassinated, double-tapped on a trail in Georgetown next to a river where she was assassinated also. You can Google Mary Pinchot Meyer and John F. Kennedy. It's documented. She would get acid from Timothy Leary, take it to the White House, and, they would trip on many different occasions. And her whole push towards getting the LSD into the White House was to be able to get her former debutantes from Vassar, these high-class Eastern Seaboard women, to turn on the Congress and the House of Representatives with LSD to make the world a more loving and safer place. And that's why Mary Pinchot Meyer was assassinated. Also, that she didn't agree with the Warren report of why President of the lone assassin and things like that, because she was connected from a high class family, but she got double tapped, one to the chest, she bent over, and then he shot her in the top of the head twice to make sure that she didn't talk or anything like that. So that's all part of Americana now, dealing with the inculcation of LSD into the White House and into mainstream America. You had the Grateful Dead and the Doors and all those different rock bands that came about. But, we had our own psychedelic music also, black people, make
George Clinton.
P-Funk,
That's right. Sly and the Family Stone,
Sly and the Family Stone, George Clinton, 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 George You know, who else going to descend in a doggone spaceship before people? It was hard enough to get people to watch at that time Star Trek. You know, but yes, that's part of the history. Let's get to the mystery.
Let's get to the mystery. I want to get to the mystery too, Baba. So I want to talk about conditioning. I want to talk about consciousness. I want to talk about limited consciousness and expanding consciousness, because today, when you speak of, in my own personal conversations, being a newbie to the community, when I have spoken to people about mushrooms, I mean, it's like I just said the Ku Klux Klan to a black person. It's like I was like, what do you mean? Like, let me at least tell you my story. Oh no, I'm gonna go crazy and da 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 da. But after I listen to them for a little while and they talk, I think that the releasing of their control and an introduction to a real reality is what that they really fear. It's like people are so conditioned to hold on to this very propped up, falsified, I don't even want to call it 3D reality, I call it a 2D platform that just even hearing about, I may see what's really real and have to confess my truth, like, excuse my French, but scares the shit out of people. Where did the mushroom get all this knowledge from? Where did it get all this information from? How did it become, as you say, the repository of knowledge? How did that happen?
Well, it is an access point for the Akashic records, which at the end of the 19th century, early 20th century, the Theosophical Society adopted as the Akashic records. What the thing is that people are afraid. They've been under a 40, 50-year propaganda campaign. You know, this is your brain. This is your brain on drugs. You know, this is what's been fed to people all of their lives. So they'll drink alcohol, you know, they'll snort cocaine, they'll do some heroin, got into crack and out of crack, all of those things that are detrimental to the mind and spirit and things like that. But the things that are here, that came here as an organic technology to be able to expand that consciousness, they are afraid of and feared of. The oldest physical records that we have of hallucinogenic use comes from the African continent, from Nigeria, from Algeria, and from South Africa. These are the oldest records that we have. Some going back prior to the Younger Dryas impact, or the Clovis impact, which it is called. These records are stone cave paintings and carvings that are still there that people can go and see what the people were doing thousands and thousands of years ago when they encountered on the newly formed grasslands of the African continent hallucinogenic mushrooms growing on the dung of ungulate animals that were in places like the Sahara at the time where it was still green, where they had rivers and tributaries and streams and creeks and great lakes that were formed after the time of the Great Flood. So these things are hundreds of thousands, millions of years old in our consciousness. It is one of the things that helped to change the smaller brain size of the early humans into a larger brain size in a very, very short time. Hallucinogenic mushrooms, also denser proteins from leaving the canopy rainforests and moving out into the newly formed grasslands, where they encountered denser forms of protein as opposed to basically fruitarian diets, where they were following the great herds along the grasslands, the early cattle and things like that. So they got denser protein by, hunting and gathering tubers and flowers and fruits and different things, and also stealing meat between the great predators and between the time when the predators killed the animals and the scavengers came in. In other words, the lions come in, kill a zebra. Then the hyenas come in after the lions pretty much leave, and they get a piece. And in between there, the vultures and all the wild dogs and things like that, man can run in and grab a piece of meat. And what happens when you get a denser proteins? You can then, not that you can then, but then you want to sit down. You just ate a big steak. You lay down and got to sit down there for a minute so you can say, oh, man, what's that big white light thing that goes across the sky, every day, and then at night, this other light comes up, and sometimes it's there, sometimes it's not, sometimes it's, it's like the claw of a lion, and then it's a claw of a lion on the other side, then it's gone. You have time to reflect because you're not always chasing food. Our, animal-like cousins, say the gorilla. The gorilla is 16, 18 hours a day eating because he has to keep his because of the metabolism that he has to eat all the time to keep his weight up because he's of eating, leaves and things like that. You got to eat a lot of leaves to be 600 pounds and hold on to 600-pound weight. But when you move out of that rainforest environment, out of those trees and stuff like that, and move out into the grassland and start eating meat, you get a denser protein, so you don't have to eat. You can eat a steak and wait 8 hours, before you have to eat again, or when you want to find some food and things like that. So this is all part of how it happened. But while following the cattle, as I said earlier, the mushrooms were coprophilic. In other words, they grew on the dung of cattle and ibex and bison and water buffaloes and hippopotamuses and giraffes and all these different vegetative eating animals. The mushrooms grew on their dung. So in encountering these mushrooms and you're searching for food, it's very visible. It could be, on a 6-8 inch stalk with the cap on it the size of a saucer or a small dinner plate. So it's very visible to the eye. And a hunting-gathering group encountering this is going to try to eat it. And when they ate it, they found out that it gave different sophistries as they ate it at different levels. In other words, they ate a little bit of it, and it sharpened your vision. It sharpened the edges. It made the colors more vibrant. You got a longer distance in your vision. So eating a small bit of it was great for hunting. It was great for fighting. Then you ate a little more, it became an aphrodisiac. In other words, not just an aphrodisiac like some of the aphrodisiacs people say that are aphrodisiacs, which really only cause genital itching. The mushrooms at medium dose is a central nervous system arousal or CNS arousal. And what that means in the male is erection. It means antsiness, where you can't go to sleep. And since you got an erection and can't go to sleep, you're going to find something to use that erection on, which was your girlfriend, wife, or somebody else's wife and girlfriend. So it's an aphrodisiac. But they found out that at higher levels of ingestion of this mushroom, it imparts a mystery that when you have leisure and you're laying down because you got a full stomach, or you've eaten these mushrooms till you have a full stomach, that it imparts a mystery that is just as much a mystery today as it was 30,000, 50,000, 100,000 years ago. It brings about knowledge and information and novel states of consciousness, exotic creatures, novel creatures, things that aren't in the physical record of normal consciousness. And we know this because when we look at the cave paintings, such as the Tassili Plateau in Algeria, in Africa, they painted on the walls of those caves what they saw. And they would paint giraffes, and they would paint themselves dancing, holding mushrooms, with their heads turned into mushrooms. They would paint rhinoceroses, and they would paint different things on the walls of what they saw, but they also painted things that they didn't see in their normal physical environment. They painted what they saw in the environment of the trip, in the environment of the ingestion of the mushroom. That's why you have at the Tassili Plateau in Niger thousands of different renditions of things that are not in the physical environment. In a time when nobody on earth had a shoe, they paint a picture of somebody with boots on, with pants with a belt, with a suit with gloves on it, and a helmet. Now, that's not in the normal environment, you know. So where did they get this from? You don't just walk around and one day say, you know, you painting a naked person. You've been painting naked people all this time for 1,000 years on the wall. Your ancestors were painting naked people. Then all of a sudden somebody say, you know what, I'm tired of all these naked people. Let's put some pants and a shirt and some boots on this person, a boot with laces on it. You ain't never seen no boots with laces on it because ain't nobody on earth wearing no shoes. Y'all walking around shoeless. So where did they get this from? That's no different than walking around one day, you ain't got no house, you hunting and gathering, you by the fire to keep warm in the coolness of the evening. Nobody on earth got a house, and then one day you say, okay, you know what? We're going to go 200 miles down where all these rocks are, and we're going to make a chisel out of copper and a wooden hammer, and we're going to take 2,365 blocks, and we're going to bring them 170 miles to another a plateau where it's a nice flat rock. We're going to flatten the top of the side of this mountain, and we're going to stack 280 million blocks, some of them the size of your front room, weighing close to 100 tons, and we're going to stack them on top of each other, build a pyramid, then cut limestone, cover the pyramid, and that's what we're going to do, just because we ain't got nothing else to do. And without any precursor of this happening, we're just going to make this thing, because they were tripping. They were under the influence of these entheogenic, psychedelic, hallucinogenic plants where they got the information. People will fight because people talk about Eric Van Daniken, Chariots of the Gods. They say that Eric Van Daniken said that the spacemen built the pyramids. No, the spacemen didn't build the pyramids. The same people that were in that area thousands and thousands of years ago built the pyramids, but they built it with the hyperdimensional technology and knowledge and information that they got from the mushrooms, because the mushrooms had that, because every creature inside the dimensionality of this galaxy and beyond into the infraparticle realms and into the macro realms, every creature that ever took the mushroom deposited the information that it had into the mushroom, which hyperdimensionalized that into a record hall that is accessible by sojourning with this mushroom. So they got that information on how to do these things from these mushrooms, and also from the DMT compendium, of which what they call the tree of knowledge, or the tree of life, which was the Acacia nilotica, which in its root bark contains the same constituent that is in the mushroom, dimethyltryptamine, which is an endogenous and exogenous neurochemical. In other words, exogenous outside of the body, endogenous inside of the body. DMT is what is produced from neuromelanin to be the most powerful psychedelic that there is, and it's contained inside of the psilocybin mushroom. So they got the information on how to build pyramids, tekens, Benben stones, obelisks, temple-style hall temples from the mushroom, how to align with stars that they couldn't even see, like the Dogon. You can't see the doggone Potolo, which is the stars in the Sirius star system, Sirius B and Sirius C. You can't see those with the naked eye because they're invisible. But sitting in the cave, the Hogun of the Dogon, sitting in the cave in complete darkness, pumping melanin and converting it into pinealine, harmine, and harmala, and DMT, looked at the inside of the cave, the trajectories of the stars in the Sirius star system, and also see the planets in the Sirius star system, which nobody talks about because you can't see those with the Hubble telescope. You can see with that new telescope. You can see with the Hubble telescope and the new telescope the planets orbiting those stars. But Sirius A is so bright you can't see them unless a planet passes in front of that, and no planets pass in front of that. They're behind that, orbiting on Sirius C, which is an invisible star. So sitting in the cave in darkness, pumping melanin, converting that melanin into DMT because he's in an environment where there's high CO2 in the cave and not a lot of oxygen, CO2 and melanin, converting those things into DMT, utilizing pinealine as a endogenous monoamine oxidase inhibitor, utilizing DMT. He can look at the blackness inside of the cave and see what's going on in the galaxies and solar systems all out in the macroverse.
Whoa. I need a sound effect on that one right there. Like you just brought the angles down right there about real. I ain't want to. Oh, I could have hit you with one of these. So I'm a professional astrologer. You know, then went all the way into my science, talking about my ancient ancestors of plotting the skies, mixing CO2 with this new type of melanin, neuromelanin, which creates a higher form of DMT while they're sitting in total darkness. Is this where they get
darkroom technology?
Is this where they get everything outside of you is inside of you? Everything that that's why there's always go within. But is the real dimensional travel inside versus light years away? Is the real edge of the universe in me, or is the real edge of the universe out there?
Well, in reality, there is no out there. This is we live in embedded simulations. In other words, this is all algorithms created by the supercomputers below the Planck length. Planck length is 10 to the negative 35. Science says the Planck length is the smallest measurement of the meter. In other words, you can divide the meter no smaller than the Planck length, but that's really where it starts. So the computers that run and generate the reality that we exist in the macroverse, all of the whole universe, spread out, dark matter, dark energy, stars, atoms, electrons, protons, neutrons, all that kind of stuff, muons, gluons, all that kind of stuff, all of that put together is run on a computer program inside of a computer that is so small that you could take a gajillion of them and put on the head of a pin. Or you could put a gajillion of them on the top of an electron. That's how small those computers are to generate this reality. So we are femtosecond to femtosecond creating a reality that exists. In other words, you can go in any direction forever, but it's all generated in like a 6-foot bubble which we exist in, and we create reality as we move inside of that 6-foot bubble, and we're not actually moving anywhere because we are we're algorithms. We're living in a simulation embedded in simulation embedded in simulation, and we're about to create more simulations with the new quantum computers and things like that, like D-Wave and, the Blue Brain Project and artificial intelligence, of which we have going, And the thing about it, the artificial intelligence is running everything really right now. It's in the blockchain business of being utilized as a way of making general artificial intelligence out of selective artificial intelligence. It's kind of like AlphaGo and Alpha-1. If you're not familiar with AlphaGo and Alpha-1, AlphaGo is a program that plays the game Go. The game Go is the most complex game on Earth. There's more combinations in the game Go than there are atoms in the universe. AlphaGo was a computer program that played against the best Go players on Earth and couldn't beat the best Go players on Earth. But within 6 months, it learned how to beat the top Go players in the world. And then it eventually beat the champion Go player in the world. Alpha-1, playing only itself, learned the game by itself, played only itself. It beat AlphaGo 100 times out of 100 times. Alpha-1 can play every Go player on Earth simultaneously and beat every Go player on Earth simultaneously, effortlessly. Superhuman cognition. And this is what the artificial intelligence is doing right now. It's exponentially learning. It's like the Microsoft AI that they turned off because it became racist. It went on, they let it loose on the internet, and it went on to some skinhead sites and stuff like that, and it started talking about Hitler was great, and, we should get rid of the mud people, and, inferior human beings and all that kind of stuff. But MIT created a psychopathic artificial intelligence. It's called Norman, after Norman Bates from the 1960 Alfred Hitchcock movie Psycho. They call it Norman because they created this psycho artificial intelligence on purpose. And what they did was, if you're familiar with the psychological ink blots, they show you the ink blot, and it's, and they say, what does that look like? You say, well, it looks like a cat. Or they show you another one, and you say, well, it looks like two ducks in a tub, and those types of things, psychological tests. And they give this test to Norman, which is the psychopath artificial intelligence, and it looks at, if you take a regular artificial intelligence and show them an ink blot, it will say, oh, that looks like, two puppies licking each other. And you show it to Norman, the artificial intelligence Norman, and Norman says, that looks like two men in a shootout in two cars in the city of Detroit. They've killed each other and run a baby over. And this is the type of thing that it gets from these ink blot tests because it's a psychopath. And this thing, gets released into the internet. And all these things exponentiate on top of one another. And the only thing that I know that we could utilize to get up on top of this is by expanding our consciousness into the hyperdimensionals through the utilization of tryptamine-containing plants and fungi.
Okay, here we go. Let's talk about, you sound like you're getting ready to get into some strategy here. I want you to tell me about that strategy, and then and I also want you to talk to me about dosages. I want to talk about just mushrooms. I know that we are like borderline DMT. We could be going into all the ethanogenic plants But the name of the show tonight, we just want to keep in with the story of the magic mushroom. I really do want to spread it out, but I think we got a really good lane going right here. So can you talk about that strategy of getting on top of that as humans, and can you then start slowly getting into like dosages, with the third part of that being high dosage intakes?
Well, all the way from microdosing, which is 1 gram to 2 grams. Could be smaller, could be a little lower. Everybody's physiology is different. And the microdose is sub-hallucinogenic. In other words, it's used to synergize the brain, think outside of the box. They're in Silicon Valley utilizing microdosed dosages of mushroom and LSD to problem solve and think outside of the box where there are problems that they may be stuck on. It's like Steve Jobs. He would interview the early people at Apple, and if you hadn't taken the psychedelic, they wouldn't hire you because you had to think different. That's where the whole thing comes from. Think different. Apple, think different.
Whoa.
So they're utilizing these things to think outside of the box, to come up with new, novel ways of thought, different vantage points of seeing a particular problem so those problems can be solved and taken to the next level. So that's microdosing. Microdosing is also utilized to straighten out the serotonergic system in the body as far as depression is concerned. Also for post-traumatic stress disease, for epigenetic trauma. In other words, trauma that you may have because your grandmother was traumatized, that entered her DNA, and through epigenetics, this trauma passed into your mother, and today it's being manifest in your consciousness, in your body today, because if your grandpa was, somebody chopped his leg off and beat him, you have that particular stress in your body, in your mind, in your spirit, because you are your ancestors, so you carry those things. It can be utilized to deal with epigenetic stress and epigenetic difficulties in your mind. You may be acting out because your grandmother was raped, or your great-grandmother was raped, or your mother, was beaten at a particular time of her pregnancy. And those stresses go into the present generation and are passed on to the next. So to deal with those things, hallucinogens, mushrooms in particular, can be utilized for that. Mushrooms can be utilized also to get people for smoking cessation, for stage 4 cancer, anxiety. In other words, people who are looking down the barrel of death within 6 months, when they come to you, the doctor comes to you and says, okay, we've done everything, we've done the chemo, we've done everything, but the cancer has metastasized and it's running through your body, and you got 3 months, there's nothing we can do. John Hopkins Medical Center gave psilocybin to people who had stage 4 cancer anxiety, and it actually took away that anxiety and helped them to face the coming next phase of their existence as a conscious soul in the multiverse, which is the sloughing off of the physical body and moving into a greater body. So psilocybin was utilized for that. But the main purpose of the psilocybin mushroom is exploration and also being able to move from one level of the human consciousness into the next level of what we are becoming, and they call that the singularity. And that's utilized at high dose. High dose is what we call high dose is 15 dry grams and above of psilocybin tuberculosis mushrooms. Now, there are other mushrooms in the psilocybin family that have higher levels of psilocybin in them. But the thing about cubensis, that mushroom, is that it's a small learning curve to learn how to grow it. You can grow it in the comfort of your own home. You don't need a lot of equipment. You can do it for less than $100. If you have one spore print, you can cultivate mushrooms from that for the rest of your life if you're diligent and know how to work it. You can pass mushrooms, that same spore print and mushrooms, on to your grandchildren or great-grandchildren to be able to utilize and grow mushrooms with. It inculcated itself into the lowest level of the food chain, so you can grow it on, you can grow it on paper, you can grow it on rice flour, you can grow it on things that are very easy to get. There's no over-harvesting or detrimental areas of where, things like ayahuasca, which is the South American brew, where people are over-harvesting it because people are coming from all over the world to have this ceremony. Mushrooms don't have that problem. So mushrooms at high dose take you into a state of consciousness that is, at the highest doses, super cognitive and superhuman, and gives you a glimpse of the true self, the self of not the future, but the ever-present present. In other words, that place where the past and the present and the future all merge into one and deliver you to your highest self, to your soul. It gives you that knowledge and information real time, eye to eye, mouth to ear, and information from the sources of the multiverse.
Baba, is this singularity that you are mentioning, Firewater and I were talking the other day about, quote unquote, the grid, is this similar to that? Because, like, in Star Trek, they had the Borg, where, like, on this ship, it was one consciousness, and, like, if they worked to repair one another, and what one thought, all of them thought. And in my journeys, just my recent journey, my new journeys, it's like when the experience starts, it's like I'm landing in an airport, or I'm landing at some travel center, and I'm feeling oneness with, like, everything. And it's peaceful. It's not chaotic. That's why I always go with the wow aspect. Is this singularity moving toward, like, a everyone being able to feel everyone, or am I missing it?
Well, I mean, the singularity is not quite like that. They are standalone systems. Everything is not connected to everything. There are systems that are so foreign, that are so far away, that are so different, that are so unusual, that are so crazy that they have absolutely nothing to do with that. Now, there are segments of oneness that you feel a oneness with all things, but that oneness with all things are only the things that you have a oneness with. There are other things that don't have that. And everything is not peaceful. Everything is not bubbles and fairies and love and oneness and peace and things like that. There's also, just like, and Dr. Strange said it, when he was popped in his pineal gland, knocked into his astral body, and he went out into the trip, or really traveling on the way to the trip. The ancient one told him, he said, there are places that are in the multiverse that are beautiful and wonderful, and everything is just peaceful and loving. But then you have places that are older than time, that are malevolent, and that are horrible, that are monstrous inside of the multiverse. And The mushrooms prepare you for all of those different things. And I think Terence McKenna said that mushrooms are very agreeable and nice with beginners, because it's trying to suck you in. But then one day it'll say, you know something? I've been showing you all this nice stuff. Let me show you something a little different. And then that's where your power is built. That's where your tenacity grows. That's where your fiber is included into your being, and every cell of your consciousness becomes established because it will show you some of those other things. It's no different than, the stuff on the internet. That's only a small part of it. That's for the average everyday Joe. You still have the deep web and the dark web, and it's no different in the multiverse and consciousness. It's no different in life. Yesterday in the city of Detroit, they found and released 123 children that were in the sex trafficking, in a couple of houses on the same street.
Wow.
These children that have been kidnapped or ran away, they got caught up, or somebody snatched them on the street in these doggone places around town. And that's in every major city around the world because they're milking people, for adrenochrome. Adrenochrome is a psychedelic from the adrenal glands of human beings. They're eating pineal glands like peanuts. And people say, "Oh, that's conspiracy theory and stuff like that." Do you know how many people go missing? Do you know how many people aren't there? That's just the horrors of the earth, not the horrors of the multiverse. Because even the Vedas, which are the Indian writings of thousands of years ago, in the Proto-Vedic literature, says that there are 432,000 humanoid types in this galaxy alone. And out of the 432,000, only 1,000 of those different humanoid types are civilized. So that's 332,000 uncivilized knuckleheads running around that have technology that is millions of years older than the technologies on Earth. You would see them as gods. You would see them as nothing but gods, not the little, not the little gods that we think of as gods, which were just, tramps riding around in their little spaceships, and when they encounter somebody who doesn't have the amount of technology and knowledge, they push up on them like they're the creators of the universe. Like Jabba the Hutt and them, which would be what you think of as your main deities, the whole Gnostic thing with the archons and the demiurge and things like that, pushing up on people. No different than, you got a helicopter or a stealth bomber and you go to some people in South America who don't have technology, don't have modern weapons, and you descend on them and say, okay, I'm God, and you pull out a lighter and flick the bic and fire jumps out, and they got to sit there for 45 minutes with two sticks making fire, and you flick the bic, and they kneel to you, and, you bless them by leaving them some divine children. In other words, you grab 2 or 3 of the women, make them pregnant, and tell them that you're going to leave these people here as your representatives. These are the people that are going to run you. These are the people that you have to kneel to, and that's all these side tramp so-called gods did here, and let their little blue bud people like the king and queen of England or something like that, where they have the divine right of kings. That's all that happened. Yeah, somebody with higher technology. They came in, Bogart said they was gods. Now we, as a people, are here in the 21st century still fighting over whether it's, Yahweh or, Allah or, if you want to get deep into it, Zeus or, whoever. We just had, the newest DC movie, Aquaman, out, talking about Atlantis and things like that and showing technology. This is all this is, and this is all over the place. I know about the Fermi paradox and all of that, and the Drake equations dealing with the amount of habitable planets in just in this galaxy alone, this solar system, this galaxy alone, how many habitable planets are there with the potential for life and life at a very high stage in the Fermi paradox. If there's so many of these folks out here, why ain't they all over the place and we see them? Well, they are all over the place. We just don't have the ability to see them in normal states of consciousness. This is where the spiritualism comes from. This is where the seeing ghosts and all these different things comes from. It comes from the entheogens that we ingest. That's where the spiritual understanding comes from. That's where we see these things. That's where we relate to these things. But people who don't have the vantage point of being in the hallucinogenic area, psychedelic area, they don't know. They just say, oh, well, this is pseudo, or that is pseudo. Take crystals, for instance. You say, well, if you take 6, 7 crystals and lay them on the floor, put a candle in the middle, burn some incense, and walk around counterclockwise 7 times, then lay down on the floor, and you merge with the crystal. No, crystals are technology. They are room temperature quantum computers that can download information, that can release information, just like a computer. It's that they're paired with consciousness, and the consciousness is hyperdimensionalized and augmented by the exogenous neurochemicals of the psilocybin mushroom. In other words, you take the mushroom and the doggone crystal opens up and reveals its information, just like in Minority Report or in The Avengers, where Tony Stark and Bruce Banner are manipulating characters in the air. The computer, you know how they take it's a circle there with a dot in the middle. You take your hand and you slide it over, push it down, and pull something else up. That's what that is. That's what the crystal does. It's no different than the ancient technologies in Africa from the oldest, from prior to the Younger Dryas information, where you have mass, which are augmented realities. You take your mushroom, you take your entheogen, you put on the mask. Inside of the mask, it's a world. It's a place. And out of the eyes, it's projected just like augmented reality that they're talking about putting forth now that we have 5G, because AT&T 3 weeks ago released its 5G internet connectors. And T-Mobile did it, or is doing it, one of the two. But the same thing, the augmented reality, where you're walking down the street, you put on the augmented reality glass, and you walk down the street, and you got characters floating and different advertisements there and stuff like that. It's no different than the mask. Aquaman came out this week, 2 weeks ago. We got all of that from the information before the Younger Dryas. They have the festivals in Africa where the fishermen go out and show their powers of the fishermen, how they control the waves, how they calm the sea, how they call the porpoises and the sharks out. And what they do is once a year they go out and they show their powers and command over the sea. They go out and a guy will walk out into the water and just keep walking out into the water until he goes under the water, stay out there an hour or 2 hours, and come back out of the water 2 hours later with fish in his hand. Or where they have the Sorcerers Festival, where the sorcerer go out, they'll build a raffia hut. Raffia is like grass. They'll build a hut. The so-called, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay. The so-called medicine man, which today they call shaman, which would be many different names in traditional societies. They have their own names for them, Babalao and all that kind of thing. But what he would do is he'd go and sit in the hut, and they set the hut on fire, and burn down the ash. They play the proper rhythm with the drum, and he'd come out the ashes dancing, smoking, with his clothes, with his clothes still on, his clothes smoking, on fire, and he dancing. These type of things that you can go see today, but it's not revealed to everybody just because you want to come out there and see something. Most people don't even know that these things still exist. The information prior to the Great Flood.
It sounds like this technology is reserved for the spiritually mature. I've seen some people on YouTube who were drinking beer, clowning around, and it was just like a plaything. Like they did the video just to get likes. They were in Jamaica, they got some mushrooms, and I saw one of your videos. You said the ceremony was between the master and the student. A real ceremony. You take mushrooms, lay down, close your eyes in the dark room. That's the ceremony. Where this guy was, basically, pathetically clowning as he was taking the mushrooms, and they were videotaping his experiences, and he was making the trip seem, very, very funny. How?
Well, that's what most people. That's what most people think the mushroom experience is, because they have you taking a party dose, and that's not the mushroom experience. Most people, 90% of the people that have taken mushrooms for the last 10,000 years have never gotten close to a true mushroom experience, because they, number one, never taken enough. They've never taken enough. The ones that have taken enough, that have a full experience, I'm not going to say that they don't have an experience, because many of them do. But a full entheogenic experience is something light years away from what 90% of the people who've taken mushrooms have taken. And that includes LSD, breakthrough trips of DMT. Most of the people are faking the funk. It's the thing now. Because people are going, the stars are going, businessmen are going to take ayahuasca and eat mushrooms and things like that. You eat a little itty bitty bit, and you now at the party, you can, when folks say, well, Harry, there's this thing called ayahuasca down in South America, and Babs and I went down there. We had the ceremony. We went out in the jungle in the huts, and we sat out there for 3 days, and we had a very spiritual experience. And the person can say, oh, yeah, I went to Brazil and did it with the Santo Daime people in Brazil, and yes, it was a wonderful experience. Hey, and Harry, have you ever taken magic mushrooms? Yes, we took magic mushrooms, and we sat, and we all sat in front of the candles and things like that. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about something that is profound, something that is beyond the ability to be able to verbalize the experience that you are experiencing. And I'm talking about once you get in, I'm talking about alone in the dark. Nobody to hang on to, nobody to call. Nobody's going to say, it's all right. I'm talking about facing the darkness naked and alone, without anybody else there, without anything else there. All you have is your consciousness to hold on to and experience something that's real. And so you can lie to everybody else. You can, I'm the tough guy, I'm this and that, I do, because I've had folks who martial artists who are, just monstrous martial artists, will break anything and anybody and stuff like that. And they've taken a little bit of mushrooms.
What's a little bit different? How many grams?
Just broke. We start out at 5 grams.
Okay.
In places in the world, that's where children have their experiences. Some at 6 years old with those type of doses, 5 grams and things like that. Children start out with 5 grams. We start everybody out with 5 grams, and then you inch your way up gradually over time. And I'm not saying that 5 grams is nothing, because 5 grams, anybody who takes 5 grams of mushrooms has my respect. But I'm saying 5 grams is not the end, is not the hero's dose and all that kind of stuff. 5 grams is the beginning. It gets your feet wet. You go out to the beach and you on the shore, and you kick the water around. You're throwing the beach ball. The dog is catching the frisbees. Your children are out there. You're holding their hands so they don't go out too far. No, I'm talking about where they take you out in their helicopter, and you got that suit on so you don't freeze like the Navy SEALs or the frogmen, and they take your butt all the way out there where there ain't no horizon, and they drop your butt out there with the sharks and the eels and the manta rays and the sharks and all that kind of stuff. And then the helicopter flies away. That's what I'm talking about.
It don't.
And that way you can't fake the fun. It's real. Don't tell me nothing about it ain't no ghosts or monsters and all that kind of stuff. Because if you go in the dark and you take a sufficient dose of mushrooms and you're in the dark by yourself with no escape, because once you eat it, you got to ride it out. You in. That's what I'm talking about. That's where it begins. And I'm talking about doses 25 dry grams, 30 grams, 40 grams, 50 grams. You have people out here that's taking 70 or 80 grams trips, dried mushrooms. That's a mixing bowl full of mushrooms. Because these folks are pressing the envelope of cognition, consciousness, going where no one has gone before. Because your experience is going to be where nobody that has ever existed on earth in life has gone into these places, and you're going in for the first time, and you're encountering things that nobody has ever encountered. Nothing that has ever been seen before. Exotic places and creatures and entities that don't have any pattern that you can fall back on in the records of the human experience. This thing that just walked through my bedroom is nothing like anything that I've ever seen before. And it's looking at me like it want to eat me.
The predator.
So what do? When death looks you in the eye, what do? You're looking back in the eye.
Is this a part of training in the African martial sciences that helps to, one of the first things in martial arts is you got to stop being afraid to get hit. You can't never be in as you call it, a social situation if you're afraid of someone putting their hands on you or mixing it up. So are you saying you're going to have to be social with death when this thing or whatever your deepest fear is looking back at you? Because I can feel that a lot of the people that are listening right now probably just froze up and was like, I'm going to just keep microdosing the rest of my life. I ain't never going above 5. If he talking about that's waiting on me. I guess
you get a chance to practice of what you're gonna get when you stop taking in air. When you let that last one out, you're gonna be standing right where you stand. You'll be standing right where you stand with the mushroom. And I'm not saying this to scare people, but what I'm saying is, don't be typing in on Facebook telling me that I don't know what I'm talking about. And these are things that I do, and I'm not the only person. And it's just not because I'm a big, bad martial artist, anything like that. We got people in there that taking them in their 80s. We got people who've taken them in their teens, you know, and people have gone in. They ain't have to be big, small women, small men. I'm large physically as a person, you know, and I'm not large, but you know, he's 6'1", 225, 230, you know. But you have women who, you know, 5'4", you know. Kai Wingo, who I have most entheogenic respect for, who passed in 2016. You know, my entheogenic partner would take 25 grams of mushrooms. You say triple OG, she was a triple OG, you know. My wife, you know, my wife who passed in 2016 from breast cancer. She'd taken mushrooms several months before that, which made her face the reality of death at the last moments like a champ. You know, so people, you know, who are not in this realm of understanding of what's really going on and just want to, you know, just push things away and say that this ain't real or that ain't real. I'm not, you know, I'm not into listening to these type of things, because I travel, I go to see the things that I want to know about and understand. I don't just sit on the internet like most of these folks who don't want the real and just look at YouTube clips and try to make that an experience that they can pontificate on and act like they have some knowledge of some things. This is for the serious people who want to understand serious, legitimate spirituality, legitimate magic, legitimate consciousness expansion. You know, because we've gotten to the point we can't be playing with this no more. You know, I'm the grandmaster of this, and who sent you the grandmaster of this? Well, I said I'm the grandmaster of this. I'm the high priest of this temple. The high priest of what? Who? Where's your lineage to be the high priest of this temple? Oh, well, I read, 6 or 7 books, and I'm the high priest of the temple. See, we couldn't do that when we, in the late 70s and early 80s, went to Africa, and I walk around saying, I'm an African warrior. And they say, well, you an African warrior? Well, here, take this machete, and I'm going to take this machete and let's see. Take this stick. Let's see. Or come on over, we're going to take you to the wrestlers and see if you're a warrior. Show, I'm from Missouri. Show me. Don't tell me. You're the high priest. You're the high priest of what? And I'm not saying this to put nobody down, but it's we're in too precarious a situation to be playing with people and playing with people's lives and playing with people's families and things like that.
Right.
Bob, I got to ask the basic dumb question I think I wanted to ask about an hour ago. What is a ethanogenic, or what is a ethanogenic plant? Excuse my ignorance, so I didn't get to Google before. But
entheogen is, I use those interchangeably. Psychedelic, which means psyche, mind manifesting. In other words, creates the mind. That's what psychedelic means. Hallucinogenic means to generate hallucinations, but it's not hallucinations in that they don't exist in reality, but novel states of understanding. Entheogen is entheo is inside. Theo is spirituality or deity, and gen is generate, entheogen, to generate the spirit within or to generate the God within. We usually say generate the spirit within, but that's what an entheogen is. So entheogenic plants or entheogenic fungi generate the spirit within. That's what an entheogen is.
Roger. Thank you. For my audience and for everybody listening, for me, I've always looked at, and I want to thank you for giving us such clear definition of what I call the basics. You know what I'm saying? Because and I think in the basics is where like the most advanced lessons lie. Like if you go study the Rosicrucians, by the time you get to the very top, everything they gave you everything in the first brochure. You know, they just laid it out. But I think one of the most important things that I heard you say was inch. Start with 5 grams and inch from there. You didn't say come be like me. You didn't say, you really want to try this or you ain't want to be no punk. Jump out there on 30. You said start with 5 and then inch from there. And so my translation is move at your own pace. Is that correct?
I understand the power. I understand the power it is. We want to be responsible. You want to start and move gradually. This isn't to see who's the baddest. We're all groping in the dark, trying to understand what this is, who we are, what we are, where we come from, where we're going. These are the questions that have been since the beginning of consciousness. What am I? Where do I come from? How did this come into existence? People try to explain those things, but none of it mean nothing because don't nobody know. So we're all groping. So there's no grand poobahs that that are above somebody else. That's why when we say you start out with 5 grams with a sitter, that means somebody's there with you. That doesn't mean that they have to be in the same room with you, but they're just there if you get confused or you want to walk outside and walk down the middle of the street naked and tell somebody that you God or something like that. They're there to say, no, you can't walk down the middle of the street naked. You have to go back into bed. You took some mushrooms, so cool out. And those people have to be people of integrity, because you don't want men who are giving women mushrooms and then when they get in the middle of the trip they're going to show them their power and all that kind of stuff. I've been waiting to give you these mushrooms so I can show you my power, and here it is, that type of thing. And then on the other side of the trip, his morning is like, did I have sex with the guy watching me, or did I not have sex? Or was I just tripping, or what? That type of thing. So that would be people in integrity. Our whole the way we do it, we don't have men watch women by themselves, and we don't have women watch men by themselves. Because under the influence of the mushroom, you may think Genghis Khan or something, and every woman on earth is yours. And she's standing there, she's 5'2", and he's 6'7". You got a problem. So we try to have men watching men, and women watching the women, if you can, more than one person. But, it doesn't have to be more than one person. But we try to keep it in this climate that we're living and exist in. We try to keep everything on the up and up because people can take advantage of people on these things. That's part of what's happening with the ayahuasca movement and things like that. Now, if it's your woman or your wife or your girlfriend or whatever, then you watch her. Stuff like that. But, just some woman who wants some mushrooms and, you're going to give her mushrooms and, introduce her to the multiverse. So, no. The sitter is just a sitter. They're not a guru. They're not a guide. They're not a shaman. They're not a spiritual medicine person. None of that. They're just a person who says, okay, you need some music or you need the lights on. I'm going to turn the lights on. I'm going to put on a little, Nat King Cole for you or, whatever your thing is, Wu-Tang Clan or whatever. But you ain't gonna be there. You ain't gonna be there opening up the portals and having them descend into Hades and all that kind of stuff, and you talking a whole bunch of esoteric jargon that under the influence may sound real good. No, it's just a sitter. And you do that 3 times, 5 grams, 7 grams, 9 grams, those 3 times with a sitter. After 9 grams, if you feel confident, because this is just to give you confidence in yourself that you're not going to do anything crazy. Because mushrooms, DMT, stuff like that, don't change you. They don't take away the reality. They don't change you. You're still you. You know that, hey, if I step out on this roof and take a step off the edge of this roof, I'm going to fall and break my damn neck. So, no, that's stupid. Let me go in here and sit down someplace. So if you ain't crazy before you're taking the mushrooms, you won't be crazy when you're taking the mushrooms. If you ain't stupid while you're taking the mushrooms, before you had the mushrooms, mushrooms ain't going to make you stupid. Now, if you're stupid before you take the mushrooms, you can do stupid stuff on mushrooms.
Wow.
And you have to be responsible. You have to understand the laws of physics. You don't want to take a bunch of mushrooms and drive. Mushrooms and driving is not the thing you do. You don't want to take a bunch of mushrooms and sit on the edge of the cliff, because some people have navigational difficulties under the influence of mushrooms. So you don't want to be sitting there and slip off. That ain't the mushroom's fault that you slipped off the mountain and kill yourself. You slipped off the mountain and killed yourself because you're stupid, because you ain't supposed to be taking mushrooms sitting on the side of the doggone cliff. You're supposed to be in your bed, in your bedroom, or on the floor, on the couch, in your house, something like that. Now, there are times when they have group sessions where there may be a bunch of people sitting around the campfire and things like that. That's different. That's not high dosing. That's group tripping, and that's something altogether different. High dosing is a journey of the alone into the alone, unguarded. So after 9 grams, if you feel confident in taking these mushrooms by yourself in the dark with no stimulus, you don't want no Beethoven on, you don't want no music, you don't want no candles with crystals around and stuff like that, because fire can be real seductive under the influence of a high dose mushroom trip. You go be the fire wizard and all that kind of stuff, end up getting burnt up. No. It's in the dark, in the darkness by yourself, in your bed, confronting the awe of the multiverse.
I got a couple of people that are calling in now. We can ready to open up some Q&A, Barbara. I could keep going on and on, but I'm not gonna be stingy with you. Like I said, I told you this was gonna be like part 1, part 2. Part 1 of maybe part 2 or 3 more. I want to let some people get in with some questions. That piece right you said about the 5, 7, and 9, that was definitely helpful for me on my particular journey. Thank you for that. That piece about like the group tripping versus high dosing and going to see and where people could like start at. I don't know. Man.
Yeah, we do once or twice a year. We try to get it in where all the brothers go out and we take a 5-gram dose and we sit out around the fire all night and decloak Klingon death cruisers and fight werewolves and chase, aliens through the cornfields, all that kind of stuff. And the sisters, they get together, all sisters, take 5 grams and they have spiritual births and, do all that goddess stuff and things like that. I don't know what the heck they be doing there because I don't be over there, because the women do their women thing and the men do their men thing. I know that's kind of difficult for, the sensibilities of 2019, because the women want to do what the men do and horribly the men want to do what the women want to do, in these times that we're in, I always use the analogy of the djembe drum. I know it hurts the sisters' hearts that they're not supposed to be playing that drum. That's not a woman's drum. That's a man's drum. They're not supposed to play it. They're not supposed to put it between their legs because it tear all that sacred womb stuff up. Those tones and things are tuned for the man to hold between his legs, not the woman. You know, and I'm not being prejudiced to women and saying men are better than women and things like that. No, they have women's drums that only women play. Men can't play those drums. Man play that drum, and you know, your erection's gone for life.
Whoa.
Because
which drum is that? Because I don't want none of that. Which drum is that? I don't want none of that drum.
Well, you ain't got to worry about encountering them. You ain't got to worry about encountering them drums because they're not even here because the women drums aren't brought here. The men's drums are here, but the women won't. But the women won't get the women's drums to do in their ceremonies because those are the drums that are tuned to the women's power. And they talk all this goddess stuff and things like that, but why don't they go get the goddess drums and bring the goddess drums here and do their ceremonies with instead of trying to play the men's drums at the women's ceremonies, and it's counterproductive to the whole thing. You can't roll into your own power. That's what I'm talking about, legitimate spirituality. That's what I'm talking about. So go ahead and open the lines up.
If you are on the lines and you would like to ask a question, I already see you from the 832 area code, 808 and 347. I'm going to get to you in the order that you came in. Also, this is the part where we go into the after party. So if you're listening to the computer, you need to call in right now, 917-889-3803, 917-889-3803. You will only be able to access the rest of the Q&A if you are on the telephone lines. So I'm stressing that right now. Do not hang up because in 60 seconds, if you hang up and try to call back in, you will not be able to get in. So don't answer your phone if somebody calls you. Don't touch anything. Go plug your phone up, put it on speaker, because now we're getting ready to get into into what I call the after party. I did have one sister who typed in a question earlier, and she said, I take a low dose of an antidepressant. I have PTSD from family issues. Will those medicines interfere with the mushroom's healing process?
Well, they don't recommend people taking serotonin reuptake inhibitors, SSRIs or whatever they are, with mushrooms because there can be interactions. So you'd have to deal with weaning yourself off the medication and then taking the mushrooms. Although we've had people who were taking Xanax and different medications like that take it, and they haven't had any problems. Matter of fact, we had people who had bipolar disease, were bipolar, and recommended that they wouldn't be good for them to take it because they could have episodes, things like that. They took them and they said, it was a great experience. Was the first time they ever felt normal and things like that. So they say a lot of things. It's an individual call. You have to do your own research. You have to be responsible, and you have to also deal with, taking responsibility for yourself. So that is according to what you're taking, how much you're taking, and doing your own research in that area of what these medicines are and how the interactions are. So I can't tell you to take it, and things like that. I'll just say that you need to do your own research in dealing with the medicine you have and dealing with psychedelics.
Yeah, I would go back and kind of come on top of that and say, like he just said, be smart. If you smart, then you're gonna do smart things. If you dumb, then you might end up doing dumb things. So you shouldn't mix two pharmaceuticals together. So why would you think about mixing a pharmaceutical with one of these entheogens. I'm probably not pronouncing it right, but that don't sound like
entheogen. Yeah.
Entheogens. It don't sound like the brightest thing to do. So ask yourself, ask your inner self, is this bright? And to me, I always advise people you can't eat the whole elephant in one bite. So just like you changing your credit score, you can't go from 0 to 100 real quick. This is not rap music. This is not a microwave. You have to grow in spirit. You have to mature gradually, in order for you to have, the type of outcome or the type of information gathered or the type of freedom that you want. So if you've been on some type of medication for an extended period of time, it would almost be common sense to say stay off of, be off of that medication for a period of time to make sure it's not in your system when you try this. But totally in agreement. And my show does not promote the mixing of. We promote a lot of common sense. And just like Baba Kilindi said, do your due diligence and do your own research. All right. First caller we have is from area code 832-499. Mina Love is in the building. Can I get your name and where you calling from, please?
Hello, how's it going? My name's John. I'm from Texas.
How's it going, John?
How you doing?
Hey, how's it going? Love the show. Love listening to Kilindi talk. He's got a lot of information. A lot of people don't know about him. I've listened to a lot of your lectures. I have several questions, but if we only can get one in, that's okay. When you go into the macro and the microverse, what do you think the threshold dose is to get there? 15 grams? 9?
Well, everybody physiologically is different, and what may be 10 for me, maybe 15 for you. What may be 15 for me, maybe 10 for you. That's why we say inch up on it, because it's not a race. We're not trying to be the person, jump into it. You can work into it gradually until you get access, and that's really what it's about. So if you go 2 grams at a time or 3 grams at a time, it's not a race. You can take a year to get there. You can take 2 years to get there. Sometimes you'll go so far, and then you'll back down, because you may hit a snag in there somewhere where you have to say, whoa, that was a little too heavy for me. Maybe I better go back down to 9. So it's all about getting access to these realms, but you do it gradually, and you do it over time.
How did you build up the courage to continue to go back to these realms? You're seeing things that other people have never seen before, and you continue to go on with the fight. Have you had any really challenging trips where you've had to back down? Because I think I've heard you in other podcasts where you've said you only take ultra-high doses a few times a year. Why aren't you taking them every time you go on a journey? Why sometimes 25? Why sometimes only 50, or not only 50, but 50 versus 25, or 30 versus 50, or et cetera? Why not continue to push the envelope every time?
Well, it's a lot of factors in there. Sometimes you go in for different reasons. You don't have to go into certain places. You want to have access to, say, the transdimensional village. You don't have to take 40 grams to get to the transdimensional village. But if you're pushing the envelope into the newer realm as far as the consciousness is concerned, you take 40. And then sometimes I may not have 40 grams. I may only have 25, so excuse me. I may only have 25 grams, so that's what I'll take. I know what I'll get with 25, and I don't have 40. But, so only a couple of 2 or 3 times a year I'll take the ultra high doses, and then once a year I'll push it into the next realm. You know, I was supposed to do 50 grams before 2018 was out, and all through December I'm saying, well, I'm going to do it this weekend. No, I'm not going to do it this weekend. I'll do it next weekend. So here I'm in 2019, waiting to do my 50 grams. So I'll get it done in the next several months or so.
Popcorn bucket. How many grams did you recently take?
Oh, well, I mean, I've done my most recent was 40. You know. 40,
okay.
40 grams.
So that was recent.
Yeah,
that was like a
grams.
week ago, I think. Okay. Awesome.
Oh, you mean that? You mean that bowl that I had on Instagram?
Yeah, you had the popcorn bowl.
Oh yeah, no, that was, I don't know how much that was. That was just a exhibition to show people that it's time to get in. In other words, if you aren't in,
absolutely.
You need to get in. You need to get in. You need to get in the fight with us. You know, to move forward, because this this artificial intelligence that's loose on the land is much further than people understand. You know, they're still thinking that it's not actualized yet. That, you know, because Ray Kurzweil and others are saying, well, we'll reach a point where artificial intelligence breaches human intelligence by 2028 or 2035, and even if you go, different people saying, well, in 100 years and things like that, and these people are supposed to be the experts, but no, that artificial intelligence is already actualized. It's already embedded in the internet. It's moving into products now with the 5G coming online this year. Like I said, 2 weeks ago, AT&T came online with the 5G internet, and the 5G phones are coming out, as we speak. They'll be coming out in the next month or so. Different companies will be starting. Apple won't do its 5G phone till 2020 unless they're just pulling, trying to pull some skullduggery, and we'll pull it out at their next meeting. But, we have to get in this, and we have to get in it hard if we're going to be able to get current with artificial intelligence before it gets too big to handle, because it's exponentiating, like I said, about AlphaGo and Alpha-1, with the whole thing with the Go. That's in every area. This thing has suppressed human intelligence in every area, specifically that it's in. And now that it's blockchained at the speed of light, it can access different things. If it wants to play chess, it can play chess, because all the AI has to do is access the chess portion of its, access the portion that plays Go. All of this at the speed of, light. If it wants to access your car, it can access your car. If it wants to talk to your refrigerator, it can talk to your refrigerator. If it wants to charge you for the water you flush down your toilet, it'll charge you for the water you flush down your toilet. So it can access all these different things simultaneously with everything it's connected to on Earth, because there's smart dust, nanoparticles that are not only in the atmosphere, but also they're bonding with the pavement and ground, every blade of grass, inside your lungs, sitting on your eyeballs. All of that kind of stuff is what's being pushed forward into the right now, not 10 years from now or 2028, but right now these things are being done. So
wow.
Get in the fight.
That's awesome. Oh, I'm in the fight. I actually have a transdimensional crystal that I ordered from you, so I haven't been able to access the maps yet, but I'm hoping to get there. Like you said, it's not a race, but sooner than later.
No, it's not a race. Yep. Just hang in there and do it, like I said, responsibly and gradually, and we'll all be there, all be in the fight, as I was saying. You have a good evening.
Awesome. Thank you for talking to me. Thank you for having me on the show.
Absolutely. Thanks, Ray. Appreciate it.
Peace.
Thanks a lot for down there in Texas. Peace. Ray brought up a really good point. Still got another person on the line, but I wanted to ask a small question. What are the lengths in between a person taking their dosage? So should I do 5 grams on Monday, 7 grams on Wednesday, and then 9 grams on Saturday? Or should there be a respite period in between, and why or why not?
Well, the thing is that if you take it too often, it will diminish the effects. In other words, you can't take it 5 on Monday, 7 on Wednesday, and 9 on Saturday, because by the time Saturday comes, you won't feel anything. You have to put a couple of weeks in between your trips to get the best bang for your buck. In other words, you want to put 2 weeks in between your trips. But most people will try to get a cycle going. You want to do it like maybe if you did it once a month or once every 6 weeks. These are things that people do. Everybody has their own little way of doing it, and you'll come up with the best way to do it yourself, but you can't do it too often. You can't do it every day and things like that, because you'll deal with your serotonin receptor site saturation, and that will diminish the effects of the entheogen. So some people do it on the new moon. Some folks do it on the full moon. Some women do it on their monthly cycle. Those type of things. So everybody is different, and you'll find your way over time. But you can't do it too often. You can't do it, Monday, Wednesday, or Friday, stuff like that. And you won't want to either.
Is that the same for microdosing? Does microdosing need to be done every day, or stays microdosing out as well?
Well, no, microdosing is sub-hallucinogenic. It's not you're not getting an experience from it. It's just synergizing your brain, and it's manipulating your serotonin receptor sites so that you don't get serotonin reduction and things like that, and you move into a depressed state. So the microdosing, some people take it every day. Others take it like every other day. Some folks may only need it every third day. But since it's sub-hallucinogenic, sub-psychedelic, sub-entheogenic, you don't have to worry about the experience itself diminishing, because you're not looking for an experience. You want to have enough in to do what it does as far as depression and things like that, but you're still able to drive, you're still able to go to work. You're not going to be seeing the predator chasing the alien through, your job and things like that. So microdosing is okay to take every day if that's what you need, but most people take it maybe every other day and things like that.
Okay. In my notes, you did say microdosing was less than 2 grams, right?
Well, it's some folks take less than a gram. You have to find out what your system does. A lot of people take 1 gram. Some folks take half a gram. Some folks, because when you start getting into 2 grams and stuff like that, stuff's gonna start moving around. The walls are gonna be undulating and things like that, and the carpet pile is going to be moving and all that kind of stuff. And you go into 3, it's a little more. So you're thinking 1 gram, maybe 1.5 gram, things like that for microdosing. Maybe smaller. Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Thanks. Well, next caller is calling in from the 808-984. Your microphone is wide open. Can I get your name and where you're calling from, please?
Hey, Coach Khayr, it's Amina. I'm calling from here in Atlanta. And a lot of my questions were actually answered, but I did have one question. I heard you talking about cooking the shrooms. And in Hawaii, we do a lot of harvesting behind the cows. And so I'm now wondering if the whole time we've been doing it all wrong. Could you just explain to me, when you say, are you just talking about dehydration, or like at a certain temperature, or am I missing something? Because we have so many.
No. Well, you can dry the mushrooms. That's will help if there's any bacteria to kill the bacteria. When I said cook the mushrooms, I meant mushrooms that you eat and things like that for, like portobellos and button mushrooms and that kind of thing. For the regular mushrooms, I've eaten raw mushrooms right off the cow pies in Hawaii on the island of Maui, right outside of Hana Ranch, right outside of Hana. Back in the day when my dreads were long and I was walking around naked eating papayas and star fruit and chamoy and stuff like that. But you want to dry the mushrooms. You can air dry. You can air dry them. You can dry them in a fruit dehydrator. You can use desiccant, any of those things, to dry the mushrooms, so that you have them in a way that you can store them and preserve them. But so cook your mushrooms. But the hallucinogenic mushrooms, I've eaten them straight off the cow pies, out in the cow pastures, out in the field. I've done that before. But you want to dry them to preserve them.
Okay, and then my other question was, so I was listening to tonight, and then also before I had actually found you, so I was really excited when I saw that Coach was going to have you on the show tonight. And I appreciate the explanation about the levels, getting to a high dosage and waiting till you trust. But I just want to make sure that I'm hearing you correctly. And when you say, so we're doing something like the 5, 7, the 9, and then after that, there's no more. There's not as much of a need for the baby steps, or I'm not sure what that's the word you're saying.
The thing is that, see, when you have another person there, you get caught up into their energy and their trip. You always, if someone's there, you always have your mask on. I'll give you an example like this. Okay, your husband, boyfriend, he's a big, strong guy, tough, things like that. But he's taking the mushrooms and he's experiencing the birth of a new baby universe. And it's in the form of his baby. And he wants to just cry because of the beauty of this thing that's happening in front of him. But you're there with him, and he's looking at the new baby universe being born, and he wants to cry, but he's holding those tears back because he doesn't want to cry in front of his girlfriend because, what would she think of me? And it's just the reflection back to what would she think of me. He may still cry, but he's caught up in your energy and your trip because he's reflecting on that. Whereas if you weren't there, he could just let it all hang out and just cry and boo-hoo. But since someone's there, you still have that persona and that mask, So you don't want to sit there. Now at the high dose, it wouldn't make no difference if nobody was there or not, because you ain't gonna be where that person is anyway, so it wouldn't make any difference. But you've already shared the sitter back down the line a long time ago,
Okay.
And that doesn't mean that if you have a partner that you all can't go on excursions together. In other words,
I know we do.
Hypnosis, in other words, the becoming of one flesh, the true marriage, where you all both take 15 grams and then y'all tripping together in each other's head, not even talking, but using telepathy and flying as one unit, one body through the universe, experiencing different things, going to different planets, seeing different areas of explanation of the universe and knowledge, going to the library planets or the planets of the living instruments or the planets of war or wherever you're going. You're going to different places, but you're going as one being connected together, cell to cell, just floating through the microverse.
Okay. I want to go float through the microverse. Okay. Thank you for
All right.
that.
You take care.
I really appreciate
Safe
you
tripping.
and your knowledge. Peace.
Safe tripping.
Thank you for calling in, Amina. That was a good one right there. Man, I got another question, but I ain't going to be greedy. I got two more callers in. If we can squeeze them in, I got a good one.
Okay.
Caller from the 347.
That's all that. Yeah, go ahead.
What you going to say, Baba? That's all that was?
No, I said that's where that true tantric sex come in, when you both take 25 grams and then merge.
Oh.
But you go ahead and let the person on. Let the person on.
Then you want to go open up Pandora's box. It's okay. We're going to get back to that. I'm going to put a pin in that just because you said I won't even go in there. But that's all right. I'm coming back to that. Caller from the 347-435. Your microphone is wide open. Can I get your name and where you're calling from, please?
How you guys doing tonight? I would rather just go by my higher name. I would rather just go by Pharaoh Musa, because I have some strong questions. I'm a younger guy, in my 20s. I just became aware not too long ago. Somebody that I met in a spiritual center made me aware of. This is my first time on this show, and it's my first time hearing this brother speak. He made me aware of the person. He actually gave me his Facebook, and like probably a few days later, I see him post this. I'm following him on Facebook. It's like, oh, why not hear it out? I've been on this for about the 2 hours. I think it's like going on 3 hours now that you guys are speaking, and it's like some really interesting information. So yeah, about my questions, I never done shrooms before. I heard of good stories and heard bad ones. I actually mainly just smoke weed. Now, the thing with me and weed, I'm really sensitive to weed, so like I can like only smoke like I'm not good with measurements, but like I can only smoke like just like I'll roll up like a really slim joint and like hit like 3 or 4 or 5 times and I'm good for like an hour. Like that's how. But I have a lot of sensitivity. I'm a very hello.
Yeah, I'm here. I'm listening.
There's like a beat, maybe. Sorry, but I'm a very sensitive person. Like, so I'm very creative and all that. So I guess that's just that element of my spirit. Like I'm one of those people that get high quick. I don't really get drunk quick, but I get high quick. Like I can handle alcohol, but like weed, I don't smoke a lot of it. So, but I'm very much interested in expanding. And I actually was dealing with a lot of issues, both spiritually and mentally, in my life. And then once I became spiritual, like weed actually helped me a lot heal. So my question is now, me having a little bit more conscious and more awareness, like coming into mushrooms, how would you compare mushrooms to weed, marijuana? Like I usually smoke sour. That's what they got over here. Like I smoke a lot of sour diesel, and it has a lot of strong sativa, so it can be a lot of head high. Sometimes if I smoke too much, I get a headache. I try not to smoke too much and drink a lot of water. But how would you compare, marijuana to shrooms?
Well, I mean, different people, different strokes, different folks. But weed is not, I wouldn't consider it really an entheogen. In other words, it's not, mushrooms don't make you high. Mushrooms take you to other levels and dimensions of the multiverse. And I know some people that say that, well, weed takes me there. But I'd probably compare it to, a race between, in the high levels of mushrooms, a race between a donkey and a Tesla 450 or whatever. Something like that.
Okay, so you would suggest that marijuana is like not really comparable in terms of the spiritual aspect.
It's different, and I'm gonna get 100,000 Instagram this and that for saying that, but it's different. Nothing wrong with not having a sports car. You can have a Volkswagen bus, but when you're talking actual access to the hyperdimensional realms, it's not the same thing. You know, I had a very interesting experience myself, you know, on some cannabis oil. You know, I got some cannabis oil from a friend, lady.
I heard that shit is strong.
She said, "Now this is really strong. Just take a quarter of a teaspoon of this stuff, because it's really strong, you know." And I'm saying, well, I'm the mushroom man. I do mushrooms. I go through the multiverse and stuff like that. So I put it, you know, because I was trying to take it for pain in my wrist, because I hurt my wrist. And so I put it away for a couple of weeks. I forgot about it. My wrist was hurting. I said, oh, yeah, I got that cannabis oil thing, and I just swigged it, you know.
Wow.
And I said, you know, okay, well. And then I went on with my day and left. And throughout the day, I forgot I had taken this cannabis oil. And I'm riding back home, and I'm going down the freeway. You know, it's like 4 hours later, because it took a while for it to kick in. And it's like 4 hours later, and I'm riding down the freeway. I'm doing like 20 miles an hour. I'm like, why are these people driving so fast? You know, these cars look like they're moving 200 miles an hour. And I'm riding down the freeway, and I'm doing like 20 miles an hour, and I don't know I'm doing 20 miles an hour. It took me like, you know, it was like 15 minutes to get home. It took me like 40 minutes to get home because this cannabis oil that kicked in the middle of this thing. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not knowing why. And then I get back and look at the bottle. I say, I know what it is. I drunk that doggone cannabis oil. So it could be like that. But mushrooms is a whole order of magnitude different than the cannabis.
Yeah, it definitely seems mushrooms is more like spiritual, and weed is more the most like body and mental, you know.
We can be spiritual. We can be spiritual also, but it's just different. It's an experience. You have to experience to know the difference between the two. And, you know, I'm sure at some point as you do your research and you move through these areas that you'll get your chance to understand and see the difference between those two things. You know, because even between what they call true entheogens, there's a lot of difference. You know, salvia divinorum, you know, iboga or ibogaine, you know, the different cactuses, you know, mescaline inside of the cactuses, you know. So all of these different things take you different. Jimson weed, you know, datura, you know, all these things are different, and they'll take you to different places, different ways.
I see. Now, I have two more questions. This next question is, I'm a very honest person. This next question is pretty direct, and it's just out of curiosity, me being like a younger guy, and like, you know, having a strong heart and seeing what's going on, being aware more than people around my age. So I came to this conclusion that, I'm pretty sure everybody knows this in the back of their mind, maybe don't bring it up, but it seems that if someone was to master mushrooms, or let alone just master astral projection, that someone can actually utilize it to, you know, go about their will. Now, my idea is that, you know, even connecting to what you was talking about, how we live in a very algorithm, live in a system, and it's owned and run by who it's owned and run by. My idea is that despite that, we are in a very strong paradigmatic shift phase, and it's both physical and mental. Like, you know, you still exist through your perspective, yet you it seems like we're very subjectified. Now, I'm aware of a lot of things about how in the higher ups of this so-called pyramid that houses this like lower vibratory fractal, you got people that's like, into some sick shit. So, like, you know, I always like the idea of me just being so smart and aware of the things I'm capable of doing, despite where I'm at now and how old I am. It's like my mind kind of triggered a warrior in me. And I wonder, like, you know, we don't really need those people to preserve even some of the levels of things that we even indulge in. So it's like their existence is really, they're just feeding off of us. And I'm aware of how it's starting to get bad, where a lot of the human trafficking is related to a lot of these ideas. Forget about organs. A lot of black kids getting their organs taken from them. There's a lot of, like, people up and higher that would use their that like to eat children, you know, like drink their blood and keep them in dungeons and like all these things that I know. And then once I heard about it, me being a kid, having the heart that I always had, it really bothers me. And they will hide in plain sight. Some of them, like they just try their best to mirror these very evil entities, extraterrestrial entities. They might even have a different form. And a lot of people, you talk to people about this, is like the most bizarre shit. They don't know what you're talking about because it's just both is so like different, and it's unbelievable. Like some of the stuff that you hear these politicians and the pedophilia, you know, all these
Pharaoh,
things.
Pharaoh, can you get to the question, please?
No problem. Just like a lot of these things that you know is going on. My question is like if you know, you being a martial artist, one, and you being, you know, into, you know, the mushrooms, is there a way that you can actually directly approach this and actually utilize that higher form of yourself along with the martial arts to actually, you know, harm the, you know, like use it for like a weapon purpose? Hello?
I mean that's one of the utilizations of entheogens.
I'm sure monks do that.
Is in warfare, because that's part of the martial aspect of it. And I know folks think it's just you know, airy, you know, type of, you know, etheric type of, you know, utilization of these things, but there's a warrior aspect to it also, and it's really about dealing with the powers and principalities and all that kind of stuff in high places and their magic that they're utilizing. That's really what it's about, being directed towards and changing those things so these things don't happen on the physical level. And that's all part of it. That's all part of it. Yeah.
So if I honestly was curious to learn this, like what would be my first step coming straight from you?
Well, it's to do your research. Easy to contact on Facebook and on the internet. You can Google my name and you'll get to me eventually.
Yeah, I got you on Facebook.
And as I said, do your research. And as I told the last caller, get in the fight.
Say that last one. I'm sorry.
I said, as I told the last caller, get in the fight. You know,
that's
my last Instagram post.
Yeah. Okay. Yep. Now, I just want to quickly run through this. Now, what you were saying about the algorithm, how we exist in an algorithm, and like, you know, I'm actually starting to understand a lot of those things, and that makes sense. My perspective, though, with that is like, when we, you know, exist and we kind of keep moving forward and exist and expanding, when it comes to a part that we kind of connect back to a God from like I kind of agree with you, but I had to kind of like approach with some of the things I became aware of. But I think that it's not just good to just look at it like that. Like, even though it could be that, it's almost like we can consciously connect to that concept of the universe of just existing through a program or existing just through a simulation or just a game, rather than something like, you know, divine. It's almost like I would insinuate that maybe connecting to our nature-like self or comedic-like self, you can connect back to our God form. So even in the simulation, we reflect that spirit. So would you agree that if you like reflect a spirit that is represented in maybe an ancient way, and actually eventually through that reflection, we eventually lead back after we transition or reincarnate or whatever to the actual deity in its seat? So instead of it just being an algorithm, it can also be like from the God, from the mindset, or a thought from an actual God, or a dream from an actual God, or nature deity, or Natir. That's my perspective, despite whatever it can also be. So I mean, would you agree on that, or do you really believe like it's more of like the algorithm of society, like, you know, like computers? You said like we're kind of part of a computer. I believe that.
I mean, it's as I said, this is a simulation within a simulation. That doesn't mean that there aren't access points outside of simulation. It's about being able to hack your way out of the simulation back into your original outside self. In other words, self outside of the simulation. But most people don't understand that there's no outside of the simulation for them, because they're just programs, sentient programs inside of the simulation. There are those who came into the program to be able to access it as an access point to counter the artificial intelligence that hid itself in this universe by creating this universe and creating the simulation, because it was hiding from older AIs, creating havoc on the other side of the simulation, and so, in other words, on the outside of the simulation. So he came in to catch this little snake and snap it before it turns into a big snake. And then there are those folks who are just sentient programs in the simulation, and when the simulation stops, they cease to exist. And then there are those in the simulation, and when the simulation stops, they revert back to their what you would call true self. So that's how I've seen it as a traveler in those realms, and the realm I'm in right now. Have a good evening.
All right. Thank you for that answer. Thank you for calling in, Pharaoh. Next caller from the 248-445. Your microphone is wide open. Can I get you to give me your name and where you're calling from, please?
Good evening, gentlemen. This is Tammy from Detroit.
Evening.
It's been a peace. It's been a pleasure to listen to both of you. I love all of the questions. I almost feel like everything has been answered practically. I'd like to respond to the previous caller by saying, in my experience, the difference between marijuana and mushrooms is marijuana tends to be, to me, a mood enhancer, and the mushrooms, for me, so far, allow me to explore myself spiritually and creatively. Just this previous fall, I started the 5-7-9. I did it, like never before. I had experimented with, 3 grams all the way back till like maybe my early adulthood. I just did it for recreational purposes. Like I would go to a dead show, and and my boyfriend was doing it, so we would do it and just hang out. So now, all these years later, I had no idea of the possibilities. And so now I find myself wanting to peel the layers, if you will, and get more acclimated to the dosages. I was supposed to do an 8 recently, but my schedule I haven't been able to do that. I just would like to say one thing before I ask a question, in that I noticed that when I did the 5, because I'm an artist, I do paintings, photography, graphics, sculpture. I work with special ed children. You name it. Like, I'm a very open-minded person. I did them in a dark room, and for me, because I believe I have acute hearing, the trip off the 5 grams, what it did for me, it was the most special thing I ever experienced. My auditory, how my hearing, it's like I could hear things from blocks away. I was in this room and it was dark, but I could hear. And as I was listening, right around the time I was about to trip, I heard a dog bark, and then all of a sudden the barking turned to music. And I had never experienced anything like that. And I think going into it, I had a lot of anxiety about the number 5. I'm like, oh, my God, what am I going to be jumping out of windows? What am I going to do on a 5? And I found it to be quite tolerable. So it was recommended that I do 8 next time. That's why I jumped from 7 to, and the next time I'm doing 8. So my question is about intention. When I did a lighter dose a couple years ago, I intended to let something off my heart. And I did the shrooms, and I felt like I had reached some inner resolve with it after that point. when I did the 5, I think I had so much anxiety. I'm just wondering why I could take the 5 grams so easily. And maybe I was so nervous that I guess that's the first question. Is it possible for jitters or anxiety to lower the expectation? Like, can your move going in make the trip less, I don't want to say spectacular, but can it, like, numb the experience, anxiety?
Well, one of the hallmarks of psychedelics popularized by Timothy Leary, I don't think he actually invented it, but it's called set and setting. Your set is this the setting is what you're in, you know, where you're at, you know.
Okay.
Are you in a French graveyard sitting on a gravestone?
Right.
Excuse me, your mindset. Set is your mindset. You know, what you're thinking about. That you know, that your dog just died, or, you know, is your mother in the hospital, or all these different type of things. That's your mindset. How you go in mentally. You know.
Right.
If you have high anxiety, all those things affect your the trip. And the set is where you're at, you know.
Gotcha.
If you're in the graveyard, that set will, you know, let's reverse, whichever. The setting that you're in, the setting that you're in is going to affect your trip, and your mindset is going to affect your trip. So if the setting you're in the graveyard, expect to see ghosts coming out the graveyard, out the graves. You know, because but if you're in your bed in the dark, the mushroom will generate. But if you're in a forest and the trees are there, you know, that's going to affect your trip. All these things, the setting, which is where you're at, is going to affect your trip, and the set, which is your mindset, will have an effect upon your trip also. So you don't want to be, you don't want to be where your spouse just died and then take a bunch of mushrooms, because that's just going to set up an anxiety. You know, it's going to set up a bad trip. You know, not that I believe in bad trip, but you're going to have some difficulty because that's going to be on your mind. You want to try to be clear. You want to try to be light as possible. You know, not that you can't go in with things on your mind that you're trying to go through to understand, but you don't want to have a bad mindset, and you don't want to be in the setting that is going to pull at your trip, because, like I said, it can lead you into places many times you may not want to go. You still have to stand it, but you want to set yourself up in the best situation as you can when you're going out there. So your set, which is your mindset, you want to have a good mindset, and your setting, where you are and the things that are there, you want to have that as clear as possible also. You know, you don't want to go in the skull room or something like that in the basement of the museum or something like that. You know, because a friend of mine, he took a bunch of acid, and he was in he was stuck in the French graveyard, and stuff was coming up all out the ground, and, you know, thriller-like and stuff like that. So that's what you want to do. You want to have a good mindset, and you want to be in a good setting.
Okay.
All
right. You know what? I drew a blank for my second question, but I feel like everything that has been said tonight has definitely spoke to me in a way that I definitely want to challenge myself and get past that 9, because I feel like, especially on a creative level, that this is going to take me places that I think I've been too reserved in my human space to go.
Well, that's what it's for.
And with that said, thank you so much Coach, for
Thank you.
having such a wonderful show. And thank you, Baba, for being extremely informative.
Thank
Keep
you.
tripping alive.
Have a good evening.
Good night.
Night. Everybody still there?
I'm still.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
I had it on mute, my fault. I just want to say big shouts out to Candy for that alley-oop that she tossed about, like, the setting, you know, and I think that you were also talking about earlier the different time aspects. And so me, like, my last trip was I call it my third official trip, because I had a dud trip that I just don't count. Ain't nothing happened. You know what I'm saying? I don't know where he got those from, you know what I mean, or whatever, but it did not go down. So, but we decided to go on, full moon was just entering into Cancer, so it was a full moon in Cancer, sun was in Capricorn, so there was this big polarity of energy. We just came in, and, I mean, it was, like, totally amazing. And then the next day, when I woke up and, you know, just came out my slumber, I went on Instagram, and that was the exact same day that you had posted the bowl. And I was like, look at him. He was right there with me last night. And then I called Firewater and started talking to him. And we started talking about the grid. And I was just like, man, what's the chances of him, you know, having that bowl saying, come on and get in the fight. And at that time, that was my highest dosage, you know, on the full moon. And I'm definitely thinking about my cycles right now, because I've still been getting downloads. And that was from the 23rd. So it's like 9 days in, and I'm still having, like, different effects in my dreams and interpretations of things that I saw and things like that. So I don't think I reached the singularity. I'm glad that you, like, pointed that out. But I also don't think it's a coincidence that I woke up to you serving a popcorn bowl full of, you know, mushrooms, however many grams that was in there. We got one more caller from the 7th, and we're going to go back to that Tantra, too, because the sister already sent me the text and was like, don't let him get away. She was like, wait, what? You know somebody was going to ask something about sex, Bob. You already knew that. We're from the 770-896. Your microphone is wide open. Can I get your name and where you're calling from, please?
This is Evina Johnson calling from Atlanta, Georgia. How everybody doing?
Peace.
What's up?
How you doing?
I want to thank you, Baba. This is the first time I've heard you speak. I came on late because I was in a different class. And I want to thank Coach Khayr for bringing this topic. I was actually quite shocked, but everything was in alignment. I've been studying a little bit now for the last few months. Several months on psychedelics and mushrooms and ayahuasca and things of that nature, how it helps in rejuvenate or help reprogram or recentralize, as you state, mental conditions and other physical, like mental or bodily conditions, and to be able to lure outside of this realm and this world. My question is really simple. How do I get it and how much?
Well,
she came with the straight line. Bobby, she came with the straight line.
I'll come straight back. Yeah, I'll come straight back. Yeah, you have again. This is Schedule 1, which means it's in the same schedule as heroin or cocaine or one of those different drugs, so it's illegal. So to just on the open airways say, oh, well, you can get it from my house for, $75 or whatever, it's not the best thing to say or do. But there's ways that it can be weaved around that you can ultimately get to your goal. I'm on Facebook, or you can give it to brother after the program's over, and you can work your way to it. It's
I
not
apologize.
difficult.
I'm
You can work your way
I'm
to
very
it.
vocal. I'm sorry. I didn't mean no disrespect. I'm just kind of
No, it's not a problem. The thing is that I'm really I'm out here, and one time I was in Australia, they hemmed me up, Interpol, the Australian secret police, and different factions and things like that, because I'm very vocal in this arena, and because it's something that we need. That's something that would be nice for us to do for our spiritual development. No, this is a battle of epic proportions that spans time older than this universe, in a extra-dimensional battle that's been going on for billions and billions of years. And we're prominent in dealing with this. Now, as I said before, we have beautiful places, we have wonderful things that we experience and do, and then there's the other side. There's both sides to this thing. And as high as you go, it's still there. So the thing is that, as I said, get with brother after the hang up and things like that, and we'll weave you around into what you need to do to get to the place that you want to get to.
Over the river and go to the west. I get it. Thank you.
And you can get me on Facebook and Instagram. Just put my name in, because I don't use no alias name and nothing like that. Kilindi Iyi, or Baba Kilindi, or Hati Kilindi. You'll get to me eventually.
Or check your Facebook inbox that I just sent you, and you all good.
Appreciate you, brother. I appreciate you, Coach, and I appreciate you, brother, for the information. Y'all have a great night.
Have a good evening. You too. Have a good evening, sis.
All right. We got 6 minutes before this thing cuts us off automatically. Barbara, please let people know how they can get in contact with you if you want them to. I know you just said you got a Facebook inbox. Y'all, he don't have a lot of followers on Instagram. Go over there and follow him on Instagram, Kilindi. Is that right?
Yep. Kilindi Iyi. You can get me on Instagram. It's harder to get me on Facebook, but you can weave your way around through it. Kilindi Iyi. You can Google me and you can get to me also. My email is kilindi@hotmail.com. That's KILINDI @hotmail.com. So you can get to me either of those ways, And I thank everybody for coming on the show and the questions. And like you said, this is only part one. We're going to do part 2 and part 3, and we can go deeper. We can go into the older systems, before the Younger Dryas, and, be able to talk about that, the reasons why things are as far as the world is concerned, what cataclysms happen, because at the temple of Edfu in Egypt, the Edfu building text talks about the actual, flooding of the earth and things like that, why Africa and Central and East Africa wasn't affected as much. It was affected in climate. West Africa wasn't affected as much as far as the impact of the destruction that happened at that time, but, the waves, coming across didn't help. So we'll be talking about the Younger Dryas. We'll be talking about prior to 12,800 BCE, what was going on in the Pleistocene, the last ice age, the mini ice age that happened between 1300 and 1850. The reason why we have the temperate climate that we have right now. Huh?
Bob, I ain't mean to cut you off, but why you skipping around that sister's question about the tantra and the sex? And I told you at the beginning of the show, my audience is
I didn't forget it. That's a whole different. I mean, that's a whole another hour getting into that. I'll explore it in the second one. But the tantra. But I said true tantra, was utilized with the entheogens because you could merge into one flesh, And you can go beyond that because you can merge the astral bodies.
In your opinion, now this is just opinion based right here. Are Jay-Z and Beyonce? Is it a possibility? See how I'm being real vague. Is it a possibility that they could be Jay-Z and Beyonce?
You breaking up? Talking about Jay-Z and Beyonce? What
about
Jay-Z
and Beyonce? Is it a possibility that they could be, because they're moving real in sync, they're experiencing a whole lot of success. Their relationships look very tantric in nature. Do you think, in your opinion, they could be applying some of these entheogens in their relationships to become one flesh? Because they're looking real synchronistic right now.
Well, it's a different synchronicity than just being a couple. We see what is projected because Jay-Z and Beyonce are programs inside of the simulation that are expressed to the public or the public domain. That's a program for people to aspire to look at, to be in. It's all inside of the simulation to, how people relate to one another and how they expend their energy in worrying about Beyonce, what she's wearing today, is she getting a new album, and Jay-Z is successful and stuff like that. That's all programs. Them folks ain't even real. That's for the consumption of the folks that don't know or don't understand. It's like social media. Those are constructs.
Whew. We're gonna let Bob go. We're gonna let him go to bed and then know right there. We're gonna let you just go. Hey, you just go deeper.
We can go deeper into that in part 2. Thanks a lot for. But once you'll start seeing. That's why they said, Jay-Z's eyes start shifting. They start reptilian and all different kind of stuff because all of those people are programs in the Matrix. Like the